years after this landmark opinion poll in Raigad, the over 10,000-hectare Reliance Mahamumbai SEZ was scrapped earlier this year by the Maharashtra Revenue Secretary. It brought to an end a saga of discontent that began in 2006 when the SEZ was first notified. And large-scale protests of this kind have been a first for the state as well, given that the Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, or the MIDC, has been one of the pioneers as far as development of industrial parks and SEZs are concerned. At the last count, it had the highest number of notified special economic zones for any state, 148 of the 500-odd proposals approved all over the country.
Maharashtra's land and R&R activities have been at the top end of the chart vis-a-vis most Indian states. Large tracts of land have been acquired for industrial development, and you have not seen too much problems. I think the issue with the Jaitapur plant is more to do with perceptions of safety, etc., etc. And there have been large SEZ tracts acquired without too much of a murmur. Recently there were some problems about a water pipeline that was cutting through farmers' lands, but the problem there was not land acquisition. The problem there was that the farmers were thinking that their water for their fields was being diverted somewhere else. Now, these kind of issues remain at the local level, but I certainly wouldn't, I would rate the Maharashtra government and the Maharashtra bureaucracy reasonably high on the chart with the adeptness with which they have handled land issues. Far better than many other states.
The private players who have acquired lands directly, there has been no criticism at all. Where the government has acquired the lands and those lands are resold or they are used for other purposes, there has been certain issues, and there have been pockets where the rates are being less. But by and large, if you look at the ready reckoner rates in Maharashtra, they are normally higher than the market rates. So I think in most cases in Maharashtra, you do not find any problems relating to land acquisition.
But the tide seems to have turned. As many as 28 special economic zone proposals were withdrawn or denotified in the last year. While the government maintains that the economic downturn has much to do with this, the fact remains that aggressive farmers' movements across the state, from Yavatmal to Solapur and Osmanabad to Jalna, have been a wake-up call. Some might think of these withdrawals as ill-timed for Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan, who comes in at a time when Maharashtra is negotiating perhaps one of its deepest troughs. But after months of maintaining a silence that even drew criticism from his own cabinet, Chavan last month made public the contours of Maharashtra's new industrial policy. Given the tension surrounding land acquisition, the new policy focuses on unlocking massive areas presently lying unused in the state's 40 to 50,000 closed and sick units. Its mega project policy has been tweaked to raise minimum investment limits at taluka level from 500 crore rupees to 750 crores. As a result, 1,500 people would get employment opportunity as against 1,000 earlier. But the more notable thrust area in the new policy is its emphasis on encouraging investment in backward areas and giving an impetus to medium and small-medium enterprises. This being important in a state like Maharashtra that is urbanizing at a very rapid pace.
It already has a very good SME and micro SME base, which needs some form of transformation and certainly business acceleration, because that can create cascading effects across a wider population base and will also mitigate pressures on very rapidly, urbanizing cities of Mumbai and neighborhoods. I think the second thing, which I believe is potentially the largest opportunity in the state of Maharashtra, is really the agri-business opportunity. So if you look at, just purely horticulture, for instance, if you look at, mangoes and pomegranates, you look at guavas, you just look at papaya, bananas, and also some of the floriculture products, in this state, grapes, of course. The opportunity to process and to add value to such crops and create employment multipliers, inclusive multipliers, is absolutely tremendous.
The government's aim is to actually develop industry very close to source of raw material. And you know, this way promoting industrial development in very specific pockets based on expertise, based on raw material available to deal with several of the issues. So for example, you know, Latur is coming up as an agro-products area. That's what's being developed. If you look at Yavatmal, you know, that's coming up very strongly around the area of textiles. If you look at Amravati, that's actually being developed for a multi-product SEZ with a lot of manufacturing taking place in that area.
And Nasik is a classic example of this synergy. For decades, Nasik, about 200 kilometers from Mumbai, has had some of the biggest conglomerates crowd its industrial parks and also had a strong farm sector, being the country's principal source of onions and grapes. Today, Nasik can also boast of being India's wine capital, and this story of entrepreneurs partnering farmers to create a viable agro-industry is only about a decade old.
The thing with farmers is you've got to show them, like, okay, here's where it's growing, here's how well it's growing, here's the yield, here's the calculations, you know, here's how much money you make at the end of the day. If they don't see it, they're not going to plant it. But we were able to demonstrate that this is something that is very profitable, that's much more profitable than table grapes, as a matter of fact. And then Nasik had so many table grape farmers, they were going through some lean patches, so a number of them did switch over. And today we have great discussions, and we have forums where we interact with the farmers, and a lot of ideas are exchanged, and they are looking forward to people like us, in fact, to bring in these kinds of things, because they know that they have certain limitations of being able to bring, you know, foreign technologies or ideas. So in fact, I get a lot of support today.
In Sheelapur village, about 15 kilometers from the winery, Mahendra Shivaji Rao Gunjal is one of the 200 Nasik farmers affiliated with Sula. Gunjal owns land, most of which is dedicated to the contract farming of wine grapes, a business that has proved to be lucrative and for the most part stable, unlike the table grapes business.
फिक्स रेट का हमें भावजाला जिसके लिए कहते हैं वो उन्होंने दिया, और टेबल ग्रेप्स से कम काम ये वाइन ग्रेप में होता है, जिसमें गर्निंग नहीं करना पड़ता है, थिनिंग नहीं करना पड़ता है, डिपिंग नहीं करना पड़ता है, ये काम कम होता है। वो टेबल ग्रेप्स खाने के ग्रेप्स से ये इसका काम थोड़ा सा अलग है, और ये करना भी थोड़ा सा ठीक है, और जिसमें रेट का फ्लक्चुएशन का कुछ सवाल ही नहीं, क्योंकि एग्रीमेंट है और फिक्स रेट है।
But there have been problems as well. Problems of oversupply as farmers switched over to wine grapes without signing contracts with wineries. There have also been stray cases of contracts not being honored in the lean season.
यूवी ग्रुप करके जो ग्रुप था, उन्होंने लोगों के साथ काफ़ी एग्रीमेंट का जो वादा किया था, जिनके लिए उन्होंने शेयर्स भी कलेक्ट किए थे। जो शेयर्स के पैसे तो उन्होंने किसानों को वापस दे दिए, लेकिन एग्रीमेंट फुलफिल नहीं किए। जिनके भरोसे पे लोगों ने अंगूर के फार्म लगाए थे, वो उनको काटने पड़े, जिसकी वजह से लोगों का बहुत नुकसान हुआ।
And then there are the endemic problems of agriculture in Maharashtra. Power outages make expensive drip irrigation systems redundant, and inadequate lines of credit make futures uncertain.
ये 3 साल से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का बहुत प्रॉब्लम है। यहाँ पे 18 घंटे का लोड शेडिंग है। आप बताइए, 18 घंटे का अगर लोड शेडिंग है तो इरिगेशन सिस्टम फॉलो कैसा करेंगे, कैसा करेंगे?
There is also the question of a youth at crossroads, most of whom are studying in colleges in Nasik but are uncertain about what they want to do next.
मैं इलेक्ट्रिशियन करना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे बाहर भी जो काम करने की आदत है, और मैं घर में खेत में इसलिए कर रहा हूँ कि पैसे की ज़रूरत कुछ पड़ती है, तो पार्ट टाइम के लिए जॉब कुछ करना पड़ता है।
मैं 12वीं के बाद सीए बनना चाहता हूँ, अच्छी पढ़ाई करके इधर खेत में कुछ नहीं है अभी, तो बाहर कुछ करना चाहता हूँ।
प्लम्बिंग का काम करता हूँ, तो ऐसा ही खेती में कुछ मिलता नहीं, कुछ किया सब्जी किया सब खराब हो जाती, तो इधर क्या है मिलता है क्या, अगर 200 रुपए की किया तभी मैं ये होता है, इधर है 150 रुपया रोज।
And if this is the situation in a relatively advanced Nasik, matters in less developed and far-flung Vidarbha can only be worse. Next week on the Ministers of Change, we travel through the state to talk to farmers to understand what they want in terms of policy decisions to bring about meaningful change. We'll also look at the question of employment generation and skills education for the youth of Maharashtra. All of that and more next week on the Ministers of Change. Till then, from the entire team, goodbye and thanks for watching.